Good evening. I call to order this work session of the Gladstone City Council for Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. It's 5:30 p.m. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Huckabee.
Present.
Counselor Mitchell.
Present.
Counselor Blau.
Present.
Counselor Labonte.
Present.
Counselor Farley.
Present.
Counselor Garlington.
Present.
Mayor Milch.
Present. Please stand for the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the usual script. We are live and on Zoom, and this is a work session, so there's no public comment allowed, but we do have staff here to help us with some of the items on our agenda tonight, which basically one item, Gladstone Downtown Revitalization Plan updates. And we're going to hear some parking options between Exeter Street and Clackamas Boulevard on Portland Avenue and provide a timeline on next steps. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. This is really meant to be an informal session on the work that staff's been doing on the downtown revitalization plan. So after we give a brief summary, we're probably going to need you to come up and actually look closer at the four options that we have to talk about parking. The boards that you see at the dais, those were at our business social that we held at the Arlington Tap Room a few weeks ago. And so just wanted to have those out here for you. We will probably be displaying them at City Hall for a period of time. So several months ago, our city engineer, Pat Sissel, John Lagarza, Economic Development, and former Public Works Director Silas Richardson, and now our interim Public Works Director Travis Spurley, and I've been meeting to talk about what's the next steps for the downtown plan. If you all remember, several years ago, we kept talking about infrastructure's got to go down Portland Avenue. There's a stormwater line that's got to get all the way down Portland Avenue. And we're going to have Pat share tonight a little bit about why that is no longer part of this plan and what we're going to do instead of design and engineering the stormwater line down Portland Avenue. The other piece of the plan that we wanted to let you know, if you remember that the center lane on Portland Avenue is proposed to go away. In order for that lane to go away, we had to do a traffic study at Gloucester where the traffic light is. So we're in the process of having a traffic study go there to show that we don't need the center turn lane. And right now we have informal confirmation that we're going to be okay with removing the center lane, but that will come in the future in a formal report for that.
Jackie?
Yes.
You say we don't need the center lane, presumably down the whole thing. Would there still be a dedicated left turn lane because there's a left turn signal there, or would people be turning left from the traffic lane?
They would be turning left from the traffic lane.
Okay, thank you.
For that. So when we started realizing that we don't need to find $4 million to do the stormwater infrastructure project, we really wanted to focus on the streetscape and what we could do. The laws have changed since we did this plan, and that's part of why we have 4 different options. Parking is a big topic down there for the businesses, and they want more of it. So really what we want to focus on tonight is how we came to these 4 options, and then let you look at them and ask some questions. So John, do you want to give a brief overview first?
Sure. Hello, Mayor and Council, John Lagarza, happy to be here again. Like Jackie said, I think, the main thing of we're being able to reroute the storm drain, think about that, a 48-inch sewer line, what Pat's can talk to you about, but rerouting that down Main Street would have probably put our businesses out of business, right? I mean, it would have been probably a good year plus there. So the good news is when we look at this tonight, Pat's gonna talk about your existing parking here. And then we're gonna talk about with the ADA, the new law, what happens here with ADA. So we have to take that into, consideration there. And then looking at the angle parking on one side and parallel on the other side, and then a double diagonal parking option too. So we want to have this work session with you and get your input, because as we go through the summer, we're going to continue to have open house events with the business community. And we want to gauge and see what they'll support too, right? So we want to make sure you guys talk to us, give us feedback, and then we understand where you're at, and then do the continued open houses, continue to do what you see the other boards. What Jackie talked about is some of these green spaces are going to be open spaces, areas where we want to put trees, music, lighting in the corridor there. We're also in the process of doing a survey to the businesses in the area to start to shape like the grant programs and improvement programs for those business communities. So we really want it to be an engaged process, but at the same time, we want them to be supportive of the parking, right? So that's going to be, I think, really exciting to hear what you all want to see, and then kind of from the standpoint of what the business community wants to see. So Pat, if you want to go through the processes here, that would be each one of these here. So, and again, if you guys would get up and walk around or look at them first, or feel free. We want to kind of make this all kind of an engaging process here. So.
We just want to keep your microphones on if you can, so we can pick up recording.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Pat Sissel, Sissel Engineering. So I'm going to start by discussing the storm drain project a little bit. In 2014, when the storm drain master plan was done, it was estimated as a $5 million project. And it's a 48-inch high flow bypass line that runs basically from up here near City Hall all the way down to the Clackamas River. And we profiled that based upon the pipe we have to connect to up here by City Hall. And we found out that it would be in the neighborhood of 15 feet deep between Arlington and Clackamas Boulevard. And it would be between 10 and 15 feet deep for several feet, several blocks. And a few years ago, when we did the Clarendon Street improvements right up here between Chicago and Harvard, we hit a basalt shelf that came up, and we hit it with the storm drain at about 5 feet of depth. And we actually hit it with some water services at about 2.5 feet of depth. So knowing that now, being 15 feet deep in Portland Avenue could be a very expensive proposition. We could figure that out potentially by doing geotechnical borings, but we looked at alternatives. And the alternative that we looked at is most of this flow currently flows to Rynearson Creek. And there's potential to take the pipe down Portland Avenue to Abernathy Lane, and then down Abernathy Lane to Abernathy Court, and then down to the Olson Wetlands, that direction. It would still be a fairly deep pipe, not quite as deep as going down Portland Avenue. And it would likely require an upsize to a culvert or potentially another culvert under the highway in the future. But it is an option, and construction would be a lot simpler following that route than it would be going down Portland Avenue. So that's the option that we looked at.
Pat, when you say under the highway, are you referring to McLaughlin, Highway 99?
Yes.
So it would have to go, so not just Olson Wetlands, which is on this side of 99, but past 99 down to Rynearson Creek.
Yes. Now the Olson Wetlands could potentially act as a big detention pond. I did talk to an environmental consultant about that, and he thought that the state agencies and federal agencies would be in favor of something like that in the name of water quality and detention. But likely, yes, we're talking upsizing under McLaughlin or a new pipe under 9090 McLaughlin and across the properties that separate McLaughlin from River Road.
And that's, would that be like phase 2 of the project, since I have like, or?
It would be a totally separate project.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
storm drain master plan.
Yeah.
Project unrelated to the revitalization plan.
Sure.
It was just, it didn't make sense to do the revitalization plan without putting in all the infrastructure first. Just FYI, when we did this storm drain project in Clarendon, it was $900 per cubic yard for rock excavation. I looked at what would one block cost if we were 2 feet into rock, and that would be about $77,000 just for rock excavation. If we were 5 feet deep, it would be $170,000.
And is it a nice, quiet process?
Yes, I'm sure we would have many citizens happy about that.
So the Gladstone revitalization plan had 3 conceptual street cross sections from Abernathy to Exeter. It was the design, and some of you probably participated in the process. But the plan is to get rid of the center median and take that space and create dedicated bike lanes. So you'd have 2 travel lanes, dedicated bike lanes, and then parallel parking. From Exeter to Clarendon Street, the design is shared travel lanes, bicycles and vehicles, sharing the travel lane, 8-foot parking parallel, and then 20-foot wide sidewalks and planters. And this section is the same actually all the way from Exeter to Arlington Street, but the section between Clarendon and Exeter is designed as a curbless plaza, where the section from Arlington to Clarendon is not curbless. That's basically the difference in the design. So in 2023, the Department of Justice adopted the public right-of-way guidelines. And as part of that adoption of those new standards to meet the Americans with Disability Act, they included guidelines regarding accessible on-street parking. And that applies whenever parking is altered. So because this plan alters the on-street parking, moves it may change it in other ways, it is applicable. And the rule is basically that there's at least 1 space per block perimeter that's required to meet ADA. So a block perimeter, back here so y'all can see. So if you look at a block bounded by Clarendon and Dartmouth, Portland Avenue, and Chicago, if we're altering any parking in this block perimeter, we have to have an ADA space. On the other side of the street, we also have to have an ADA space because that's a separate block perimeter. And so you end up with each block, we have to have an ADA space on each side. So if we're going from Exeter all the way to Clackamas Boulevard, that's 10 ADA spaces.
No, may I ask, in those so the perimeter for the handicap parking, it would have to be on Portland Ave, or could it be like anywhere on the perimeter of that block?
It could be anywhere on the perimeter of the block.
Mhm.
Now you only have to provide the parking for altered spaces, but you have to have at least 1 minimum. So for the first 25 altered spaces, it'd be 1 ADA stall. And if you go up to a 26 space, then it would be a second ADA stall would be required. So for instance, in front of the library where there's already an ADA stall, that one would suffice for the entire block perimeter. Now there's currently 2 ADA stalls. There's one in front of the library, and then there's one in front of our office, right near Clarendon. And, but the one in front of our office doesn't meet current standards. It would have to be redone. The issue with parallel on-street stalls is that they have to be 13 feet wide, which is 5 feet wider than the 8-foot wide space, which means that your sidewalk has to jut in 5 feet at that location. And they have to be 24 feet long instead of a standard 80 or a standard parking stall, which is 22. And then because the curb juts in, you have to have like 45-degree angle for that curb to go back out. So it's effectively, it's a 34-foot long parking stall. And so with this plan, we show what the impact on parking would be following the revitalization plan.
Can I add a silly addition to that?
Sure.
The DMV, to my knowledge of my students telling me when they just got their licenses, they don't teach parallel parking anymore. It's not part of the curriculum. So all of our new age drivers will have difficulties with a parallel situation.
And they do allow angled and perpendicular ADA parking as well. And those standards, I think we're all a little more familiar with. They're similar to what they are in private parking lots.
And what we have in front of the library now, the ADA parking by the library does meet the new standards, and that's an example of an angled ADA parking space.
Yes, yes. Now, there is an exception, and that is if you have parallel parking and there would be 9 feet or less between the curb, you know, you do your 13-foot wide parking stall and then you have 9 feet or less from that curb line to the building. In that case, you don't have to go 13 feet wide. You can have your ADA parking stall be the same width as the parking stall adjacent to it. But on Portland Avenue, because Portland Avenue is so wide, that 9-foot rule doesn't apply because there's going to be about 15 feet behind. And so on some of these, we've actually rotated the ADA parking stalls, for instance, around on the Dartmouth side here and placed it here because there would be less than 9 feet. So with this plan, we've tried to take advantage of maybe rotating some of these stalls around to the edges and put them on the side streets. So with just kind of jumping back here, now that we've discussed the ADA parking and the complications caused by the rules, with Plan 1 here, we've just kind of looked at a conceptual project area from Exeter to Clackamas Boulevard. And we've looked at some of the parking around on some of the side streets, and you'll say, well, why did they look at it on some of the side streets and not all of the side streets? That's because in some places we've found that we also have an issue of not complying with state law, that some of our parking stalls downtown are not 20 feet separated from a crosswalk, which is the state law. So if we're going through this, reparking plan, we have to meet state law as well as the federal law. So we've incorporated some of the parking spaces around the sides so we can, assume in the loss that we're going to have to meet the 20-foot setback.
So let me ask Mindy Garlington, if you did this, you would essentially be losing 6 parking spaces by accommodating the new line spaces.
Yeah, so with the current parking downtown, there's 72 total parking spaces, 70 of which are standard and 2 of which are ADA. And if we went to the revitalization concept parking plan, parking would be reduced to 66 total, so -6 total. We'd have 56 standard spaces, which is 14 less.
Right, okay.
Currently.
So not many friends we would make in that situation.
Right.
Which is why we have 4 options.
Okay, good to know.
So again, Plan 2 was following the revitalization plan. Because of the loss of parking, we had to get creative and look at other options.
Right. Can I ask you one more question? One just
Sure.
quick
Counselor.
clarifying question. When you talked about the ADA parking around the block, the whole block needs one, not each street?
The whole block needs at least one, but it's based on the number of spaces that you're altering. We are not
Okay.
altering the parking around the entire block.
Okay.
So we don't have to make enough spaces to comply with all the way around the block.
Okay, thank
But
you.
for instance, if we were looking at altering Portland Avenue and Dartmouth, we could potentially trigger a second stall, a second ADA stall being required because of the combination of
6.
the parking on this part of the block perimeter and this part of the block perimeter.
Okay.
And actually this, if we alter it over here, could be that.
It's 25 spaces.
25 spaces, the first 25 can be accommodated by one ADA stall. When you get to number 26, it triggers a second one.
I have a question.
Yes, Counselor.
So can you clarify from which street, like, are we going all Portland Avenue or is it just from this street to Gloucester? Or?
Well, from Abernathy to Exeter is basically keeping the curbs and sidewalks that are there today. That's what the plan assumes. And then it assumes getting rid of the center median and putting in bike lanes.
Is the center going away through all Portland Avenue though, is what I'm asking?
It's only going away from Abernathy to the Clackamas River,
So yes.
but not from Abernathy up to City Hall.
Right, from Abernathy to the Clackamas River, the center lane will go away.
Okay. So have we talked about Arlington at all, the high traffic volume that gets there?
Well, let's work through.
Okay.
our options.
Okay. So after seeing what the loss in parking would be, we came to look at plan number 3, which is a combination of parallel parking on one side and angled parking on the other side. And we looked at, for these plans, you can do angled parking at any angle. We looked at 45 degrees, 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree are the common ones. But others are used. In fact, in front of the library, that's about 70 degree. And it's just, the flatter you go, the closer you are to parallel, the less room your parking stalls will take up.
Right.
But the fewer number of parking stalls you'll get per block. So 45 is right in the middle. That's what we based our initial concepts on, but we could look at other concepts as we move on. So this plan number 3 uses the 45 degree angle parking on the west side of Portland Avenue because there's fewer driveways on that side. So it made sense to try to maximize parking on that side of the street. So we use the angled parking here, 18.5 feet of width, but it's on an angle, so it does provide room for a 19 foot deep stall. And then we went 14.5 on the shared lane. And the reason for that is as cars back out, we wanted to have an extra wide travel lane so they're not backing across the center line and into oncoming traffic on the other side. So we felt that 12 feet wasn't enough. We needed to get wider than that. So we went up to 14.5. And then on the other side of the street, this is the standard 12-foot shared lane and the 8-foot parallel parking stall. Now with our current plan, where there is sidewalk all the way from the building to the street, currently that's a 12-foot wide sidewalk. What the revitalization plan wanted was a 19 to 20 foot sidewalk. With plan number 3, we're at 13 and a half.
Mhm.
So it's only a 1.5 feet wider than it is today. Parking would be reduced to 76 total, which is 4 more actually than what we have today. So I won't say it would be reduced. Parking is 76. There's 66 standard, which is 4 fewer than current, but we have the 10 ADA stalls. And again, this plan could be altered using 30-degree angle parking to maybe, we'd get fewer parking stalls, but maybe we could get a little wider sidewalk because we don't need 18 and a half feet for this parking stall, and maybe we don't need 14 and a half for the shared travel lane because we flatten that angle of that parking a little bit. So it's a trade-off of how many parking stalls do you want, and what's the ideal number? Is it what we have today, or is it more, or is it less? Plan number 4, we looked at angled parking on both sides. And this is very similar to Broadway Street in downtown Estacada, if any of you are familiar. Downtown Estacada has 2 main north-south streets, Broadway and Main. Main Street is the street that gets more of the trucks. It has the transit. The fire engines tend to go up and down Main Street. Broadway gets some trucks, but it's mostly smaller vehicles. And this is the plan that they used on Broadway. It's basically 15-foot diagonal parking, a 13-foot travel lane in each direction, and the sidewalk is 12 feet. So it's the same as what we have today. Currently, we would be widening it all. You can get a lot of parking in. Just read it from here. Flip my notes. I didn't know I was going to juggle things tonight. So total parking would be 89 versus 72. Standard parking would be 79 versus 70. So 9 additional parking stalls. If you look at Broadway Street and Street View, you can see that even a kind of a medium-sized pickup truck will hang out a little bit into that travel lane. That's the negative. It's a pretty tight section. It's going to feel tight. It's going to feel like maybe like Arlington by the food carts. That feels kind of narrow as you go through there. Those travel lanes are actually in the neighborhood of right by the food carts. I think they're 12 and a half feet wide, but they do get narrower as you go down the street a little bit. So anyway, this is kind of 4 plans that we've come up with.
And is option 4 have no bike lane? It looks like bikes run with the traffic.
With all 3 plans, it's a shared travel lane, bike lanes and vehicles. They share the travel lane between Exeter, and we've taken the plan all the way to the Clackamas Boulevard, knowing that why would we stop it at Arlington when the bikes are going to continue all the way to.
It will still be 20 miles an hour on Portland Avenue.
It'll still be 20 miles an hour. Now, a lot of bicycles aren't going to be going 20 miles an hour, and the cars are going to be sharing that lane with them. So, whether they're kids or adults, they're going to be in that travel lane. So it'll be as fast as the bikes go.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind as John and I talked to the new owner of the old library property today, he is interested in doing diagonal parking on Dartmouth side as well. which will help for additional parking.
I may ask,
Yes.
regarding emergency vehicles, obviously we have the fire station here. Do they have any advice or kind of say in what might be good, or is that kind of irrelevant?
Well, our
Um,
police chief is here to
yes.
talk about
Yeah.
his opinion on diagonal on both
Mhm.
sides of
Mhm.
that.
Council, hi. John Schmerber here, I guess for the record, but diagonal parking, it's going to take some time getting used to for people backing up into the travel lanes. And I think, I understand talking with Westland Police Department down on Willamette Street, when they have that diagonal parking going in, it took a while and it's a little blind spot. So I guess we talk about the angles and I leave it up to the experts to discuss the angles and clear vision. But if you're talking about emergency vehicles getting down the street, we'll always find a way to do that.
The fire department will tell you, wider is better.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
having a wider travel lane helps provide in those instances when somebody's backing out and they can't see that bike coming or they can't see that vehicle coming, it does allow a little more room for that bicyclist maybe to swing over closer to center line.
Mhm.
With angled parking, as Chief said, there's going to be conflict. That's understood going into that design. But we're trying to do a balance.
Unless you want to make Portland one way.
Yeah.
Make it one way, so
One way.
all
No,
single parking.
never.
We didn't do option
No.
5 for that, but we
Yeah,
did talk
talked
about it.
Yeah, I've seen that work out horribly for cities, but I don't know. Maybe not in Gladstone, maybe, but yeah.
Doesn't seem like a good one way, the other direction road.
There isn't one.
Yeah,
why we
that's,
didn't
that,
do
yeah,
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that seems my
One
objection.
way that the current center lane is being used, particularly in the area between Dartmouth and Clarendon, is for delivery trucks that are unloading items for places that sell food or beverages. And they can just park in the middle there and cars can continue to go past them on both sides. Now, would we create some kind of rules or zones or something about deliveries? Is that typically done when you lose a lane that previously has been sort of dedicated for that purpose? At least it has been by the people who use it that way.
Yeah, there's not going to be any really good place in the middle to have something like that. There's potentially some room down in this block between Dartmouth and Exeter where it's not, because of the number of driveways here, it's not well used. You might be able to have a truck down there. You might be able to, use this space down here by Gladstone's. My hunch is they'd probably park in the middle of the street on the side streets, though. Probably Clarendon and Berkeley would be the streets that they'd use. We see those trucks nearly every day, whether it's UPS, FedEx,
Yep.
shredders, the beer deliveries or food deliveries. They're out there at least every day, if not multiple
So
times
you
a
see
day.
them in your office all the time.
I do.
You're right there on Portland Avenue.
And
Mhm.
it's because it's convenient for them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they will find other places, whether it's behind, on the side.
Right.
And when we had our business social, we were concerned about mentioning that the center lane is going to be removed. That didn't
They were
phase
glad
them.
to see
They
us.
were glad to do it, they said.
The other thing, once the parking becomes such a challenge, you do signage, and you work with, the delivery system like Cisco, delivery hours are gonna be from 4 to 6 or 4 to 7, right? So you can make areas where a truck can pull in and then the public knows. So when we start to really have a parking challenge, right now we don't really have a parking challenge. We got a lot of people coming, evenings and afternoons that are demanding more parking, but it'll take a little bit of coordination and that's why we want to reach out to the businesses and we can put no parking during these hours for business delivery to help them out too. And normally that's earlier hours or later in the evenings times for them.
Have we talked to Broadway or maybe Main Street in Milwaukee about having the diagonal parking and how that affects bicyclists and the e-bikes that may not be going quite 20 or not have like honking abilities, those kind of things?
I haven't talked to them. I've been out in Estacada a few times and seen how it works. Now, Main Street is set up with 2 travel lanes
Mm.
and then dedicated bike lanes and then parallel parking.
Mm.
So it's similar to what we have at Portland Avenue today, minus the center median.
Mm.
And that's where you see all your bikes and your trucks. Broadway is 1 street over, and it doesn't have bike lanes. It's all shared. So it's not a bike corridor like so much like Portland Avenue would be, right? Because Portland Avenue is going to see a number of bikes going down to use the future bridge.
Do you know the speed limit on Broadway there?
No, I
Okay.
don't. It's going to be 25 max,
Okay.
but it's a downtown core with stop signs, I think, at every
Right.
block.
I've been, I just don't remember what the speed limit is, so. Okay. But I will say that pulling in and out of West Lynn can be a challenge unless somebody's gonna want your parking space and stops the traffic for you, you know, that is a challenge. Granted, we don't have nearly the traffic that Willamette Boulevard has.
No, but Willamette Boulevard also has a center turn median. So what would it feel like if that center turn median went away? It would feel potentially even tighter.
You're right.
And that's if we're assuming that the spots are entirely filled too.
Correct.
So that line of sight issue presents with full spots,
Mhm.
so.
Or if you're parked with a van next to you or a truck or something like that pulling out and you couldn't see. So like one of the important things I think is how wide of a sidewalk do you want to, the revitalization plan looked at 20-foot wide sidewalks. The idea was to get people and tables and music and other things down there and create some nightlife. And with this plan, we could at least go a little bit wider. With Plan 4, we basically have the same sidewalk that we have today, which is 12 feet.
And if I just comment, because knowing about the revitalization plan for quite some time, and then when COVID happened, and the whole idea behind outdoor seating and stuff like that, I thought in my mind, I was like, oh, this could be a good test to see kind of how that would actually look downtown. Not a ton happened there, but where I'm going with this is I don't see a problem with the 12-foot sidewalk that we have now. More could be good, but businesses didn't really utilize it the first time necessarily, and I don't know. Yeah, so I don't mind Plan 4. The businesses everyone will find something that they don't like about it. But at the end of the day, the businesses want more parking downtown. So my gut so far is going more towards more is more.
Does the ADA have a preference on a parking type?
No.
They don't? Okay. I would have thought parallel. It's the easiest.
And then we lose
Like getting
parking
wheelchairs out of your
spaces.
car.
This is our existing do nothing.
Mhm.
This is, we lose parking because of the new ADA requirements. This one is a happy medium where you've got diagonal on one side and parallel on the other and meets ADA.
And you can get a little more width
Yes.
on your sidewalk.
And then the other one is just all about cramming as much parking in there as you can. Diagonal on both sides.
And let me ask one more thing. On plan number 3, I see a lot of green marks, green curves at the corners. Are we talking about bulbing out some of those corners for a shorter crossing width there? Is that what that is? And does it actually raise the curbs or does it paint it so it's sort of an understood a bulb out?
It is a bulb out. The revitalization plan does talk about using curb extensions at the intersections. What exactly it'll be hasn't really been decided yet. The thought is to, with all of the plans, whichever one we go with, do some type of a feature at the Dartmouth intersection.
Uh-huh.
The Dartmouth, you got is the main plan, but where you're gonna do your street festivals and the future,
plaza.
we're gonna shut down the street, right? That circle in Dartmouth, right here, and your revitalization plan was built to shut down, and you could, oh, there you go, and then you could have the, you know, a stage here and a band, and then folks can participate on the street activities, so this was the larger area for that standpoint there, so when we showed this to the business community, that's what we're asking is like, you know, how do you want to see Dartmouth activated from that standpoint? And I think it's important to think about like having power down here for like a future stage, being able to set up a concert, have that in there, you know, people can move forward up and down the street from that standpoint and activate that there. And then back to what Pat was talking about, you know, really thinking about like when you go over to Old Willamette, you know, how do you activate these landscape areas? And that's with trees, with lighting, putting in your music, having music, and then having Wi-Fi down there, you know, so those are things that people want to be able to do to be able to get on there, you know, get on their phone, listen to music outside and help kind of activate that. And then the other thing that we've been asking the businesses too, as we go, is just what, you know, what do they feel like that they need for their business, right? Talking to one lady when we had the open house this month earlier, you know, she was just like, man, if I could just get some funds to fix my front door, you know, and then one lady was talking about if I could get some help just for ADA accessibility into my place, right? So it's kind of filling out like, what are those future programs that we'll bring forward to you that help the businesses from that standpoint, and creating them there for that, so.
May I ask, is there a big difference in like expense for the city depending on the plans, or are we looking at similar costs, if you will? Is like one of these plans, because of more sidewalks, way more expensive than another, I guess is my question.
Well, sidewalk is more expensive than asphalt. So the wider your sidewalk grows, it's probably more expensive. Estacada use paving stones in the parking area, so a little more expensive.
Sure.
Those types of features. Their cost was about $2,000 a foot, expense wise. That was 10 years ago.
So it's way less now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
This is the least expensive plan.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. The do nothing mode. Okay.
One more question going back to where we started, which was not doing the stormwater project down there. I've heard from, well, they're now former business owners that because the tracks from the trolley are still under Portland Avenue, that the center of Portland Avenue is much higher than the curb of Portland Avenue. I think we see that on Arlington too. When I drive down Arlington, it seems very bowed. And one of these business owners told me that sometimes if it rains heavily, the water flows down from the center of the street and actually over the curb, and sometimes, you know, is a threat to the business property itself. When we talk about a curbless festival seating, are we going to be able to add some more drainage in there to help with that problem? Are we going to have to dig up that track to flatten the street? Is that part of what we're looking at? Even though we're not going to be putting in new pipe, are we still planning to flatten Portland Avenue a little bit?
You're hearing the right things. Yes, the tracks still are under there, and I recall sometime in the 90s that Portland Avenue got repaved, and they put about 4 inches of pavement on top of what was there at the center. We couldn't believe that it was getting that high. They ground out what was at the curb lines so that it didn't raise the pavement up over the curb. So they ground that out, but they didn't do any grinding at center line. So that's when it got so high.
Yeah.
And again, that was some project that happened in the 90s. The tracks we're gonna try to leave them alone, because there could be issues with opening up And you have creosote soaked timbers under there, and it could be very expensive to try and remove, not the tracks, but the timbers. Because we're assuming that all that is still down there. I think we'll try to, it's difficult as it is to pick a horizontal alignment. The vertical is going to be every bit or more challenging, because as we shrink, the sidewalks, unfortunately, they can't rise, right? Because they're fixed on the front doors of all the businesses. And so the sidewalk is held at the height that it's at. And so we have to try to bring down that crown of Portland Avenue a little bit, because the narrower we make the street, the steeper it makes that cross slope. All right, so we have to try to bring that down a little bit. To answer your question about the drainage, we will do drainage in every block. We're going to have to do some local drainage. We'll have to do some water quality, and we'll do some piping, and it'll be local storm drain. It's not going to be 15 feet deep. It's going to be, 4 to 6 feet deep, and we'll tie it into the existing systems down there wherever we can. That 48-inch pipe that was running from here all the way down there, that was a high flow bypass for serving this part of the city, to serve, what's coming out of the wetlands over here. So we will be doing drainage. Not sure exactly what that cross section is going to look like, though. It's kind of dependent upon which one of these plans ultimately is, or plan 5, whatever that may be.
But I hear what you're saying, because if you take out that center median and now everybody's driving on a slope, it just doesn't seem lovely. I mean, it doesn't seem like the best laid plan.
It's not that noticeable. It's similar on Arlington. So when I drive down Portland and turn on Arlington to go to the Safeway, it feels like the cars on one side are tilted one way and the cars on the other side are tilted the other way. But I was more concerned about, heavy rains, where the water goes, particularly if we have essentially a flat festival design with no curb at all. It seems like we need some kind of a curving there. And so when you say there's drainage, you're talking about one of those crisscross drain things where water will just flow into it as it rolls down the curb.
Our team, we talked about the concerns of a curbless plaza.
Yeah.
And we were all in agreement that that's probably not a good idea.
Okay.
We're picturing more of a curbless intersection that we can kind of control the drainage off that area. And maybe we do some kind of low profile curbing along here, but some kind of curbing. I mean, I've seen downtown Gladstone with a foot of snow, and we have pictures of our office with, I forget what year that was, sometime around 2000. And when that melts, it's got to go somewhere. And so that's what I think about. I'm a proponent of good drainage.
Yeah.
I think option
This is why it's really good to have an engineer on this project, because, something that we can do with paint in the streets, for lines and parking spaces, that's one thing. But when it gets more complicated and you're talking about curbs and, and slopes and drainage, we need that input. So thank you for being here. I think I interrupted.
No, you're perfect. I think option 2 has some merit with what you guys are discussing here with activating our downtown in Dartmouth. I'm thinking about like Halloween. I take my kids downtown every Halloween. It is very crowded. It is really clustery. And so when I think about what you're describing, these businesses expanding past their boundaries and making it have a better flow and feel and enriching the culture, if you will, of our downtown, I think that sidewalk should get pushed out. Although I still don't actually like parallel parking, but I think that might be really worth it. If we're gonna rip a Band-Aid off, let's just rip it off and add the 10 feet, not just 2.
I hear that. I think we have to be mindful of the the ask from businesses with more parking though. So I hear that. But I wonder how that measures up with kind of some of the businesses, what they're looking for.
I would wonderfully counter that with saying if the goal is to get more customers, we would want to give them the reason to come first and then deal with the parking second. We could have 100 parking spots, but if no one's showing up, they're not going to do much fun.
And I mean, I'd hope the business would be the reason for people to come by. But interesting.
And just to reiterate, we are currently surveying businesses on their priorities, so some of that information is still being gathered probably through the summer months.
Okay.
So I didn't want you to feel like you have to make a decision tonight, but we certainly want your input to determine if we're in the right direction or if there's any that we can eliminate. The other thing to keep in mind as far as cost, this is going to be funded through the Urban Renewal Agency. And because we don't have that big stormwater pipe to do, I'm not too concerned about the streetscape cost because we want to do it and we want to do it right. The other thing that I wanted to note is this plaza area there. If some of you remember when we did our rebranding, that was the area to paint the Crosswalk City colors. That's something that still could be done as we develop that plaza area. But trying to find a happy compromise between the businesses feeling like they need more parking, but for us to be able to trigger the change that we want to do down there. Are we hitting the mark with any of these options?
I feel like my preference is the third. Because now we have angled and parallel, so we're meeting those two needs for challenged drivers. I love all of the green space. We're not losing parking. I guess my only question would be, what would be the difference between 2 and 3 when it comes to the Dartmouth intersection? What can we not do on 3 that we can do on 2?
We kind of just gave you 2 different looks for what things could be at the Dartmouth intersection. I don't think whether we're plan 2 or plan.
Oh, okay.
We can make the same. We can make them.
Okay.
We can activate all.
Then it's 3 for me.
Yeah, my thinking too was that the whole parallel versus diagonal was debatable, and if you do it on one side, you've done it. You've basically compromised on both, and so it's like the old Mayor Byers used to say: if everybody goes home a little unhappy, you know you've done your job because you kind of met both needs. So I would sort of I would align with that one as well.
And option 3 gives us more parking, but some of it's ADA. Just keep that in mind.
And we may be losing some on some side streets. You mentioned is it daylighting? Is that what they call it, about how close it can be to a crosswalk and a corner?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, well, but we park on Exeter to drop our kids off from school. And at the corner of Exeter and Chicago, which is where the crosswalks are closest to the elementary school, there's some yellow painted curbs, but part of it is bright yellow and part of it is like faded yellow, like it was, worn away. And I don't know how enforcement is doing there, but I don't know that yellow is as far away from the corner as you're saying it should be. So we may be losing a little bit of space on that street. And we may have similar situations on other side streets, but I'm willing to opt for greater safety and visibility at corners. And I know that our code enforcement officer tickets a lot of cars who deliberately back into those yellow spaces thinking they're only going to be there for a minute, and she's on it because, it's not a safe thing to do. It makes it hard for people to cross at the crosswalks and to see at the corner. So very clearly labeled yellow, no parking at crosswalks is going to be an improvement, which may mean that if you're looking at an entire block going all the way from Portland Avenue down to Chicago, there may be a loss of 1 or 2 parking spaces there. There may be some modification. They're not marked spaces. It's just street in front of Maria's house. But it's But I think it would be a good thing for the community to focus on that safety aspect of bringing us into compliance with those kinds of rules. Because with all the traffic, particularly around the school, you want to be able to see children coming to a crosswalk from a good distance, and I think that would help do it.
As far as this plan here, you'll see it when you come up here, parking space 40, right on the corner of Berkeley and Portland Avenue. That's an illegal space by state law, and there's a few others like that. So we can't prepare a plan for City of Gladstone that doesn't comply with state law. So if you're asking us to design the new Portland Avenue plan, we have to comply with federal laws and state laws. So that's maybe the loss of some parking stalls that are being used today. You see them all over the place. You see them at, if Gladstone's is real busy, that spot right on the corner of Berkeley and Portland Avenue that has a yellow stripe, somebody will pull in there if it's Friday and there's no other parking available.
Did we look at maybe pushing some designated parking to side streets? So I know that most of the side streets don't have they're sort of parallel, but not necessarily marked. Can we push some of the ADA stuff around on the side blocks to get more regular parking on Portland Avenue?
Yes, where we've done that, those stalls are included in our numbering. So where you see, when you come up here and look, I know you can't see it from that
I can't
far away,
quite,
but when you come up here and you'll see some numbered spaces coming this way, that's because we were, with one of the plans, we probably altered the parking on that side. Another concept we threw out was, do we potentially look at doing a one-way at Berkeley and a one-way Clarendon concept so that we could do angled parking on a side street?
Boy, we're not making friends there.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just in the last, maybe the angled parking's just in the, where it hits the commercial zone.
Make the easel.
Okay. Does the parking, so on number 3, does the angled parking on one side or the other, putting it on one side or the other, is there an advantage to the quantity of spaces? Okay.
Yes. So no driveways between Dartmouth and Clarendon or Clarendon and Berkeley.
Okay.
Here on this side of the street. Well, on this side of the street, we've got 2 driveways here. So it made sense to push the angled parking to that side. And we couldn't go back and forth if it, but it made, this plan was the plan we were able to get the most parking out of.
Okay. And then can you tell me again, because my eyesight's not that great. What is the sidewalk width on 3 versus 4?
13 and a half
Uh-huh.
versus 12. Now, with either one of these, we could, this is 45-degree angle parking. We could flatten it to 30 degrees, maybe lose a couple spaces in this block and a couple spaces in this block, and potentially add a foot or more to the sidewalk.
I'm honestly, I'm not concerned with the width that we have right now. I think is really nice. I think that there's a room for, you can pass a stroller or, that kind of thing on that street. So I'm not really concerned with the additional width. I am, however, concerned about the visibility in number 4. I just feel like that's really tight. And I know that I would like to hear what the businesses have to say on 3 versus 4, because I can't imagine that 2 is going to make the cut.
Can I ask, do we know, since the only angled example we have is the library, do we know the width of before you get to the yellow line from the parking spot? Am I explaining that right?
It's just shy of 20 feet. It's 19, yes, it's something like that. So it's very close. I should note, we did look at diagonal parking plan for Dartmouth from Portland Avenue to Chicago. It would be a net increase of 5 parking spaces over what's there today, but we would have to alter the parking in front of the library to accomplish it, because it would basically be plan number 4. It would be this section is what Dartmouth would have to be. And the parking in front of the library right now is about 70 degrees. We'd have to flatten that to 45 degrees, which, so we'd lose 2 parking stalls in front of the library, but we'd make it up with the angled parking on the other side of the street. But about a net increase of 5 parking stalls for the block.
If I may ask, we have 4 professionals here. And I'm really interested in, John, your opinion, Paul, your opinion, of course, Jackie, what you might think, and Chief Schmerber, like what would, do you guys have a preference or some insight on what maybe from your perspective or your vantage point, what might be?
So I feel like this is a safety issue because you got 2 cars backing out at the same time, there's gonna be a wreck.
Yeah.
This is the one that I like. I feel like it gives a little bit to everybody. It does give us more parking. It allows us to improve sidewalks, to do the streetscape. I think Pat's done a phenomenal job of maximizing and looking at the driveways versus where can we get the most parking. Gladstone's parking lot is full. I don't know if you've noticed that Vogies has just redone their parking lot there, and they got rid of the fence so cars can now park off street there. So this is my preference. John?
No, I like 3 and 4. The thing I like that I think that we can explore, and I think you're going to hear the businesses probably talking about these 2 because they're always going to want parking. And I think like Gladstone's, like having a conversation with them, and we talked about this a little bit, like, is there potential for us to even, figure this out and help them even get more parking out here, right? So that's something I think we could explore and see what the businesses provide feedback from that. Where would we kind of move the ADA around for that there, right? And then the other thing we talked about is, we have some businesses that have driveways out into Portland Avenue right now. So would they be willing to, relinquish that? And we can, so for in front of Watts, we can maybe even pick up some more parking here. I think looking at up here in Dartmouth, you're going to find some opportunities up there for parking. I love the way the greenscape's laid out on this first one here, right? And I love like getting, even if we got this as a first step, and let's say we have more of an issue, we can always come over and think about like what we want to do on this other side too, right? So I think it creates some flexibility, but I have a feeling the business community is going to say these 2, and they're going to, but as long as you're open to exploring both of those, and I think if we can explore some of these side streets, because I think just as things are continuing to happening here, we're going to see parking become more of an issue, for the future.
One other thing, and we talked about this, it's not on the map, but improving the bike lanes, or actually having marked separated bike lanes beginning at Abernethy and coming down to Exeter, really connects us up with the trolley trail a lot more. And then having the bridge in the future extends that even more. So I like this approach, which really connects us to neighboring communities in a much stronger way. I hope that we'll have an opportunity at some point to look at the design of how we get bikes from that trolley trail paved area that parallels Abernethy onto Portland Avenue, because right now it's really hard to know what to do when you get to the end at the senior center, the community center. But once that happens and bikes come in and then begin to slow down, I think we will see more bike traffic slowing down in our business corridor and pulling over to the side and stopping and saying, hey, I'm going to come here too. So like Councilor Farley was saying before, when your walkways are a little wider and clearer, when your bike path is inviting, I think that's all good for business. And you combine that with a net increase in parking at the same time, I think it's like a win-win-win situation. So I really appreciate the thought that's gone into this.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is, too, is we can also thinking about in the future, working with some of these businesses for, after hours parking, and getting a cross parking agreement. So you look at Watts right now, it's underutilized and there's potential. So a lot of cities will have a parking agreement, so we could utilize some of those spaces too. So finding that. I would say also that if you get the chance to go over to Old Willamette, Chief talked about that and see how that feels, and then go out to Estacada. It's two completely different feels. I'm with what everyone's talked here tonight. Old Willamette, it did take people a while to kind of learn how to retrain them, but it's also very wide. It's a lot wider than what we have. And so when you're coming up to these intersections, you got to really pay attention of how to cross there, because it's such a wide street up there. I've noticed that in that. And where Estacada is very narrow, right? So it's very hard to back out. I think the great thing we have is I think we got just a really good, dimension to be able to work. We got to work with a little bit with elevations and figure out that and drainage, but so we've got good engineers. Right?
Well, and Councilor Mitchell asked earlier about Milwaukee, and the block where
that one
former
too.
Councilor Sierra Cook has a bookstore is a real good example of diagonal parking on both sides, 2 lanes of traffic, and if you go there and try to park there, you get a good feel for what it's like to back out opposite cars that are angled parking on the other side. So that's and I think it's closer in width to what we have on Portland Avenue, maybe than the Willamette one is.
Willamette's really wide.
Yeah.
You go out there and you're just like, you're like crossing the old highway. It's like crossing it, so then you're there. But anyway, so.
And they don't have a bike lane, right?
No.
That's why I was asking
Milwaukee,
earlier. Okay.
Oh, the other thing is, and we'll have to think about this, in downtown Portland, it's illegal to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk. But in downtown Gladstone, we don't have a rule like that. And it may be tempting for people coming down on bikes to pull off onto the sidewalk. And I hope that they could do it in a safe way. But I see cities around us looking at e-bike rules and regulations. Someone brought that up. We'll have to give some thought to all of that as this landscape changes, a streetscape changes, because the way people use bikes and strollers and e-bikes and scooters and everything could change, could evolve. And we need to be on top of it before it becomes problematic.
It's also probably a good time to consider enforcing parking limits again on Portland Avenue, 2 to 4 hours or longer. So that's a great time to bring that all together to have those conversations.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon City's got the parking downtown, I pay for that, so I'm not sure on Milwaukee. Does Milwaukee have?
No.
Pay for park? Pay for park?
No.
Yeah, I don't think
we want to go that way.
pay for park, but enforcing time limits.
Just flushing it out to see. This community is different.
happy.
I have one more question, not to go backwards, but I was looking at the maps here and I've been to Gladstone's too many times, and in front of their parking structure, it shows on every map there's 2 parking spots, but there's a TriMet bus stop there. And I've never seen a soul park there. Are those actually true parking spots?
No.
They do have 2 parking stalls right here.
Yeah. But that's what I'm talking about.
This is the bus stop right here.
Oh,
That's why on none of these plans.
We lose so much space here, so could we move the bus stop, look at where that turn would be.
okay. I just want to make sure that wasn't an accidental,
No.
And I know that as of August, we are losing some of the buses that go through our city anyway. So I think Arlington is going to continue to have buses, but there may not be as many on Portland Avenue.
It might be good for us to invite them, to our next open house, just so they see, that they're understanding what we're working on from that standpoint too.
Is there a parking, a car length limit in a parallel or in an angled spot?
Yeah, great question, Pat. Yeah, because the cars are getting longer and longer today.
Well, I was just thinking, if you've got a
Could we
1
post
ton that's
it?
an extended cab with a full bed.
Maybe Chief knows. Chief. you
Yeah.
gotta-
Yeah, it would be considered a hazard if it's blocking the roadway.
Yeah.
Then we would have to deal with it.
We can always post it. That's a great suggestion. We could post on that to help with because that is, I think some of those are past 20 feet now.
I read articles about the average length of cars and it'd be much longer than it was even, 10, 20 years ago. So if people sort of knew their car length, I drive a Subaru Forester, which is classified as an SUV, but it's considered a compact because of the length of it. So I park in compact spaces when I park in Kaiser or someplace all the time, and don't have any difficulty getting out. But I see full-size SUVs and pickup trucks that I know are much longer.
You said earlier, if you look at Broadway, if you go to Google Earth and do Street View down Broadway, you'll see a pickup. And it's not an overly long pickup. It just has one door on each, side. And it is sticking out into travel lanes. Like you can imagine if it was 350, how far out to the travel lane? That would be my concern with this, is if you have a bus, and a car backing out, and a bicycle it just feels too tight.
One more thing about angled parking. If you have kids in a car seat, it's much easier to get them in and out when you have the protection of a car beside you, rather than having to walk into the street. If you have, and right now we have 2 car seats in the back of our car, and we can have them both, they're old enough that they can both exit on the street side when we parallel park. But when they were younger, there was a time when you had to get out on that, on the street. They can get out on the curbside now, but when you have to get out in the street, that's a scary prospect, leaning over a kid trying to unbuckle him.
I'm with you. I'm just my 2 grandsons, right? It's, they're still up to where they don't listen, stop.
Yeah.
So I hear you.
Chief, can I ask your opinion?
Yeah. I'm sorry, on which part?
Which design?
I agree with the city administrator. I think what's tight, too dangerous. It's gonna be more difficult for vehicles to get through.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be easier when people decide they want to cross mid-block and not gonna be seen. Like, I think compromise 30.
And then the other one we threw up
Out.
that was the back end diagonal.
No,
parking, and
yes.
We didn't even go
No.
there.
No.
That is the thing now.
So no way.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
Hawaii.
that's just
you're
mind-blowing.
supposed to back
Yeah,
up.
right?
The
Yeah.
diagonal parking is becoming really popular because you can pull out without having that blind spot.
Right.
But we have to trust that people can back into it. Block Portland Avenue for 10 minutes. That's
I've seen cities with that, and it's just, like, even for experienced drivers, it's a wacky thing. Never mind the person right behind you. Yeah.
I grew up in North Portland. We can drive.
Well, I don't know how many of you park in the diagonal spots by the library, but whenever I come out, I walk out into the middle of Dartmouth to see what's coming, and I have to look and say, okay, that car is now 3 blocks away. I've got time to get in, start the engine and back out, knowing that, but right now you have to trust the driver who's going straight to be looking out for parked cars coming in and out. So there's plus and minuses to all of it, but I think it's something our community will get used to. And depending on the angles and the visibility and other things, we'll make it work.
I do have one more comment. Chief Schmerber, is the car length an ordinance that needs to happen so that we can enforce that? Because that really does concern me, that, and if if you don't have all your ducks in a row, you have a hard time enforcing something like that. So is that something that we need an ordinance for, so that we can limit the length of a car in an angled spot?
That would have to be researched. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I don't
Okay.
think I've ever seen it.
Then I'd like it just to be a bug in your ear right now.
Perfect.
All right, I think we've done really well with all this. I would like, if possible, to get copies of these in PDF form okay, good. And the little, the other signs too. I'd like to be able to refer to that or print them out sometime.
We could email those to you all, and just to give you a little bit of the next step. So like we said, we're surveying businesses right now. We're going to do outreach this summer. the number of surveys we have to do in this project is crazy. So we're doing a traffic signal study. We're going to have to get a survey by Centerline just of the general area. Once we decide on a plan, there will be a striping plan that needs to be prepared. And then we're looking into the archaeological study because of the railroad tracks and what might be underground. So our goal is to try to get all of this concept and study stuff done so that by the time we do our budget for the next biennium, we can start with projects.
I'm sorry, I don't think my question about Arlington was answered. If we're studying how high traffic it is and taking out the center lane there.
That's not part of this scope of work.
You mentioned taking out the center line.
Yeah.
There isn't a center line.
Okay, so we're not counting the one that turns?
On Arlington?
You're talking about Arlington and McLaughlin?
Or are we talking actually on Arlington up at?
Oh, Portland Avenue going left onto Arlington.
Yeah.
Read your mind.
So this whole median with the concept map, this whole median comes out, so there won't be a left turn.
Okay.
here anymore. It'll be, this one lane will be all over that.
Did we see that highly impeding traffic or not?
No.
Okay.
Is it gonna slow traffic? Yes, but this whole concept is to slow traffic.
Yeah.
But it would still be a four-way stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you get there, you can either turn left or go straight, but you won't have a separate lane to turn left in.
Or right.
Or go right. Yeah, anything. Yeah.
So of course, the arrows on here just, they're like negate, basically, right?
Yes.
Clearly, because it seems a little wonky. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happening there?
What you're seeing in the background.
Well, yeah, you see the background. I guess my question is more that spot there, that strange diagonal spot, kind of.
Yeah, this is just a angled spot here. The issue is there's really not enough room in here to do more than one diagonal space. So we utilize this space to make ADA mid-block. So regular parallel space, ADA parallel space, and we can begin the diagonal concept. Yeah, and this can all be refined. The idea was to give you what could be
I gotta get up closer. I'm about done squinting, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for explaining my non-word.
I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, she needs to.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry for not explaining well. It's been a long day.
That's what John was talking about.
Okay. Oh, they have two.
Right. And if you would give up one.
Or like I said, it wouldn't hurt to offer them an exit off of Exeter and close off Portland Avenue. It might even be safer for their crew that, that being an option.
And I don't think down a place just kind of look at that.
That's great, kid. Yeah, since I.
Adjourn the meeting so she can stop
Yeah,
recording, but we
let's
can
do that.
still talk.
All right, we'll have an opportunity for city councilors to get a closer look at the charts, and there may be some questions you'll ask. But as far as an active meeting, and we're not making a decision tonight, again, this is for information. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:50 PM.